Hello my dear friends and family, I'm Operator Starsky with fresh updates on the Russian terrorists having yet another week of Ukrainian fireworks inside their very own backyard. Our drones have been very busy over the past week with some of the most massive drone incursions into the Russian airspace recorded this year. So today we'll talk through the most recent UFO sightings coming from Rostov, Ryazan, Saratov, Bryansk, Kursk, Belgorod, Moscow Oblast, and that lovely warm spot on the Black Sea called Tuapse oil terminal. If I miss anything, it's only because the list of Russian oopsies keeps growing faster than their excuses. My dear friends, this is the Frontline Focus. Let's roll. So first, the big one on the coast, Tuapse oil terminal, Russia's key port for moving its precious dino juice that got a visit from Ukrainian long-range drones this weekend. Fires and damage were reported, at least one ship hit, and a lot of panicked Telegram channels learning new words like de-energized. Some of the local spies gossiped that the damage might be actually much higher. We're talking fires at Small Ship Nord and 4 tankers, Polex, Chai, Coastbuster and Saturn. And add to that the demolition of the oil loading facilities and you will understand why I had my ice cream yesterday. Now to the Moscow region where the lights went out and the Russian excuses turned on. From late October into the morning of November 1st, there was a massive waves of drones. Residents in Zhukovsky filmed city streets in complete darkness, while reports pointed to a fire at the Vladimirskaya substation, one of the big valves feeding electricity into the terror Russian capital's energy ring. Generally that night the sky over Russia looked like a firefly festival. Their own defense ministry bragged about shooting down drones across 10 regions, including Moscow, Belgorod, Voronezh, Rostov, Ryazan, Kursk, Tula, Lipetsk and Kaluga, which between us usually means a lot were indeed intercepted with their very own substations and oil refineries. Now let's zoom into those regions, shall we? Overnight into November 3rd, Ukrainian drones struck the Saratov oil refinery. Again, we're talking about the Rosneft's old workhorse located just across the river from Engels Air Base. And I must say, this autumn it's becoming a regular guest on our Refinery of the Day show. Explosions, fires, emergency crews doing cardio, that whole routine was reported. Also, the Russian sources claimed they downed drones over Rostov and Voronezh, but debris, blasts and damage reports just kept popping up, including earlier incidents this season where falling wreckage lit up a bunch of Russian facilities in Rostov-on-Don. The same night, the Russian Ryazan showed up on the shot down list too, which usually means traditional Ukrainian fireworks and happy Russian citizens recording all that goodness on camera while waiting somewhere in the queue to the gas station. Which I think is a proper place for Russians to celebrate their invasion of Ukraine, either in the gas queue to buy 10 liters of fuel per car or somewhere in the bomb shelter. Just to remind you, Ryazan hosts one of Russia's largest refineries, already forced to halt a key unit after a late October strike. It was a different night, but same storyline resulting in less diesel and more crying. Also on 31st of October, Ukraine's Navy confirmed Neptune strikes on energy infrastructure feeding Russia's military industries and terrorist units, specifically Bryansk and Oryol facilities. You know, I can almost anticipate more faces like this emerging in the Russian Telegram space very, very soon. Around the same time frame, there were electrical substations hit in Kursk and Lipetsk. Video proofs of fires and outages were generously shared with us by the happy Russian citizens. And this is the exact kind of reverse pressure we expect and like. Russia tries to freeze Ukraine, and Ukraine answers by turning off the extension cords to their own militarized regions. Happy Russians record this on camera and make us happy as well. My dear comrades, be proud to suffer for Putin's war. Your mighty Tsar is very grateful for your sacrifice. By the way, starting this winter, fresh hamsters can be purchased in your closest grocery store. Please enjoy. So just to summarize, over the past week, Ukraine kept up a targeted campaign of deep strikes, drones and missiles against Russian energy nodes. We're talking substations, heating and power plants and so on, and also refineries and ports that feed the Russian war. We saw Tuapse burning, Saratov refinery hit one more time, Moscow Oblast enjoying blackouts, Neptune strikes on Bryansk and Oriol energy grid, and also documented hits on Kursk and Lipetsk substations. Meanwhile, Rostov, Ryazan, Belgorod soaked up drones and panic whether or not every single explosion made it into the official press. And of course, Russian terrorists keep pretending that all that is nothing, but if it's nothing, why are we seeing airport closures, mass power outages, and oil workers roasting marshmallows at Tuapse? Even their loyal outlets had to admit the Saratov refinery took another hit today. And you know, when the Russian media talk about those, it means that, as we say in Ukraine, щось у лісі здохло. Most probably they just prepare their citizens for the long, hopeless winter and hamster soup. Now, switching to the situation in Pokrovsk, because already last week we could hear numerous Russian statements on the highest level on basically taking full control of the settlement, which, let's be honest, keeps repeating almost every week for nearly a year. So according to ISW's most recent assessments, the Russian terrorists have thrown almost everything at Pokrovsk at this point. They've concentrated heavy forces, they stepped up their assaults around the town, especially from the southeast, and the terror Russian leadership even reportedly demanded that the town be seized by mid-November. Before that, Kremlin demanded the town to be seized by mid-October, and so on. However, despite all the noise, the ISW says the invaders are still unlikely to immediately collapse the pocket around Pokrovsk. They are making incremental advance, that's of course true, and also the number of FPVs in the area is absolutely shocking. But the fact is, Ukrainian defenders also use plenty of FPVs to deflect Russian attacks and burn more Russian tanks, donkeys, and whatever is left from their vehicle stockpile. In late October, it was estimated that the Russian invaders concentrated more than 11,000 personnel around Pokrovsk, the town with population of 7,000 people as of January 2025. And they still cannot take it. You might be impressed to learn that the population of Pokrovsk is 10 times smaller than the population of Bakhmut. That's just so you could understand the full scale of Russian cope in 2025. The Russians are literally forced to burn more men than the population of the settlement that they're trying to acquire for such a long time. And of course, because this tiny town has such a great symbolic meaning to the Russian invaders, of course the Russian media act like it's Berlin or Brussels. And that's the biggest cringe of all this Russian war. You press tens of thousands of troops, you chase a small target, you suffer enormous losses, and you still don't get the win you were bragging about in your media through your talking heads like Peskov or Putin, etc. And there's one more thing that we should remember, is that Putin receives fake updates from his generals, and that is why he brags about this great Russian success in the media. At the same time, they're still failing to take a town as big as 15 square miles. So, my dear friends, that's the realistic update on Pokrovsk, where Ukrainian defenders are facing an enormous pressure at this point, but they keep fighting smart. At the same time, the Russians keep screaming that they won, while the fight continues for more than a year already. So with that, my dear friends and family, I wish you all a beautiful day, stay sharp, stay informed, and keep supporting Ukrainian defenders.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.